Thanks for tuning in to Ag PhD. We're glad you could join us. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. When we think about resistance, a lot of times we're talking about weed resistance and what do we need to do to overcome that or to prevent it from happening on our farms. But we want to talk a little bit today about disease resistance and how to manage that as well.
We'll also talk about in-season nitrogen applications. We get more questions about this topic than almost anything else when it comes to fertility. So we'll talk about timing a little bit and how you can identify whether or not you actually need nitrogen. Will it pay for you this year? We'll talk about that later in the show.
Another thing we get a lot of questions about is this weed of the week. We'll show you how to stop it later in the show. But first, here's our Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
I can't imagine a plumber without a pipe wrench, and I certainly can't imagine being a farmer without having one of my favorite tools along, a sweep net. When it comes to scouting your fields, I think this is absolutely critical. We need to be out in the fields as often as we can. When we're looking for insects, the tool that you need to use is a sweep net. Now, you can visually see, all right, here's some bugs, or I really don't see any bugs. It's tough though, because they can be on the underside of leaves, they can be on the stem, and once your crop gets canopied, it gets really tough to find them. So to find many of those bugs, what I like to do is just walk through the field with a sweep net. I'm just sweeping back and forth a few times. It's very easy to do. The sweep net is exceptionally lightweight, so people of any age could be out in the field using it, and you just examine what's in that net and see what you've got.
Okay, now Darren made the most common mistake that we see farmers make with this sweep net tool. It's sweep back and forth 3 or 4 times. Okay, we want to be very exact.
I didn't say 3 or 4.
We want to be precise. We want to go exactly 10 times. Okay, if you've gone exactly 10 times, now you just simply divide the number of bugs you find by 10, and you've got the number of bugs per sweep. So for those of us who aren't maybe as good at math, that's the reason why I bring that up. I prefer 10, so the math is very simple for me.
All right, Brian likes to get into the math. What I like to get into is insect identification. And as you look in that net, figure out what each of those bugs, well, what their identity is. Now, when I looked at the net when I was a kid, I'd say, man, Dad, I know this one kind of bug that we're out here looking for. Maybe it was a corn rootworm beetle, but I don't know all of these other bugs.
Yep.
And he'd say, that's fine. Get your insect ID book out and start studying and see if you can find each one of them, because you know what, Darren? Some of those are going to be beneficial bugs that I don't want to kill. And if all of them are beneficial bugs, great. I may not have to treat. But if they are bugs that are going to be harmful to the crop, we need to know what they are and then figure out how many of them it takes before they really start adding up to damage.
And that's the whole key, and that's the reason why I say I want to sweep exactly 10 times, do the math, because very often you can find insect thresholds out there that are based on number of bugs per sweep. So it's not an exact science. It's not going to get you, right down within 1% or anything like that. But you just, as a farmer, need to have a general understanding. Hey, if the insect threshold is 1 bug per sweep and I'm finding 3, wow, I've got a major problem. If the insect threshold is 1 and I'm finding 0.1, well, I'm probably not there yet. So that's really where we want to go with this.
Well, the nice thing about a sweep net, it fits in the trunk of your car, it fits behind the seat in your pickup, or even in the Ram box, depending on what type of truck you're driving. I like to keep a sweep net along. And I also like to keep a shovel along so I can dig in the ground, see if there's bugs that way too. But I really do like to sweep through crop, whether it's alfalfa or wheat or whatever you're growing.
Well, having a sweep net is really important on the farm. Being able to identify those harmful insects is important, but it's also important to be able to identify harmful weeds like our weed of the week. Can you spot this tough weed in your fields?
Introducing the SoilMax ZD48, the newest addition to the SoilMax Gold Digger lineup. The first plow designed for smaller class tractors, the ZD48 has been tested on tractors weighing between 10,000 and 16,000 pounds with excellent results. Designed for row crop farms, vineyards, irrigation, and specialty crop farms. The SoilMax ZD48 will install tile up to 48 inches deep, as well as install 3 or 4-inch tile. The ZD48 truly opens up the world of tile installation to more farms than ever before.
Ideal for herbicide applications, the ultra-low drifts large air-inducted droplets were designed to eliminate driftable fines without sacrificing coverage. Its thick three-dimensional pattern creates multiple angles for the spray to cover the target. Hypro, helping you spray better.
Take a look inside any rotary combine and you'll find single rotor technology. Technology Case IH introduced over 35 years ago with the axial flow combine. But unless it gives you more bells and whistles with fewer belts and chains, more power using less fuel, it's not an axial flow. Because while the heart of every rotary combine beats red, only Case IH gives you the power to do more.
If you're looking to expand your farm's grain handling, you want everything to be fast and efficient. The Quick Belt from Norwood Sales is your all-around grain handling solution. Our conveyor-based system uses an 18-inch belt and a 10-inch tube, which minimizes seed damage while moving more than 10,000 bushels an hour. That's fast enough to fill a semi in 6 minutes. Plus, our hood is designed to gently direct the flow of grain straight down, keeping your crop in condition. Keep your grain and your farm moving with the Quick Belt from Norwood Sales.
Leading the charge in strip tillage for more than a decade, the Soil Warrior brings the future to your farm today.
Unlock your nutrient investment with QuickRoots technology. It contains 2 powerful microbes that can help free nutrients bound in your soil, which can improve access to key nutrients for healthy crops, N, P, and K. Applying QuickRoots technology to seed can lead to improved root and shoot growth, increased yield potential, and maximized nutrient investment. See how you can make your fertilizer dollar go further at monsantobioag.com/quickroots.
Prevent resistance. Those are 2 words you hear a lot of as a farmer nowadays. And it's not just herbicides. Like we said earlier in the show, we really want you to take a look at preventing disease resistance as well, because the last thing we want to have happen is these great fungicides that are out there, we lose them because they no longer kill target diseases. So we'll talk today about how you can prevent disease resistance on your farm.
When you think about all the different modes of action or sites of action there are with herbicides, you say, wow, there really aren't that many choices. Well, when you look at the fungicides that we're using on the market today, there's really only a few modes of action that we're even using. So there's a lot less choices than there are herbicide choices. Now, there's a lot of different product names that are out there, but most of them are coming out of the strobilurin family or out of the triazole family. Those 2 families make up a majority of the products that are out there. Even the combination products are typically combinations of those 2 modes of action. We're starting to see some of the SDHI class come in, and that's been exciting because we've seen good control, good residual, those types of things. But the question is, as you're trying to fight disease, should you be using multiple effective modes of action, just like we do with herbicides, or should you rotate each pass with a different mode of action?
So research that's come out fairly recently is showing basically if I can have 2 and preferably even 3 modes of action in that tank going after that disease on your crop, that's going to be better than rotating different modes of action. So I think part of the reason why here is because if you look at disease, how often can we have new cycles, new generations of disease? Pretty quickly. Okay, it's whole different than weeds. When we think about a lot of the weeds, where we farm in the northern part of the United States, you're going to have 1 life cycle per year, maybe 2 at the most. Okay, with the insects that are out there, we might have several different generations, but there are many bugs where it's 1 generation per year, maybe 2. Okay, then you run into these diseases, and we might have many new diseases cycling through that plant, and we might have several replications of that disease throughout the different growing seasons. So I'm just trying to say we can build resistance a lot faster, it feels like to me, with these diseases, and that's in the northern part of the United States. Just imagine if you're in the southern part of the United States and there are many different host crops for some of these diseases. They could have several generations per year. So if you only were trying to control them with one effective mode of action, well, by the time you use the next effective mode of action, that first disease is done. It's already built up resistance, and now we've started to have some issues.
The other thing that's really different about the fungicides versus the herbicides is when you think about residual control. If you put a herbicide out that has good residual in the soil, well, that's where new weeds are going to come from. They're going to have seeds in the ground that are going to germinate and start growing. Well, if you've got good residual control, you can hold a lot of them back. When you're talking about, well, how much residual am I going to get out of a fungicide application? Let's say you're at the halfway point in the growth cycle of that crop. Well, all of a sudden it puts on more new foliage. Well, all that foliage is really unprotected. The fungicide is only going to protect the foliage that it comes in contact with, and really, for the most part, only for a couple of weeks. And then you're going to need to reapply a fungicide to get more residual control out there if you have another wave of disease come through your field.
You know what the easiest way to prevent disease resistance of fungicides is? It's to not even have to spray fungicides in the first place. So how can you have a more disease-tolerant crop? Let's talk about that really quick. The first thing is I want to have great drainage. If you have poor drainage, you've got a problem. You're much more likely to have disease issues. The next thing is we want to properly feed our crop all season long. We don't want to be short on micronutrients. I mean, I want you to ask yourself for a second. You may have been applying plenty of N, P, and K for many years, but how much molybdenum have you put out there? How about manganese, zinc, boron, iron, copper, sulfur? All those nutrients are super important in the plant. And if you have a good balanced diet for your plant, it's going to be much healthier. It's the exact same thing as with human health. If we take our vitamins every day, we eat right, then what do they say? Hey, we're much more likely to be healthy. We are much less likely to have disease issues. It's the exact same thing with your plant. So when you start having a lot of disease issues, I want you to ask yourself, okay, I know I've got this disease, but how did it really get started? What am I short on in my plant? Why is my plant not healthy enough to tolerate that disease? If we can fix that, then hopefully we don't even have to spray fungicides later on in the year.
So the real key to stopping diseases becoming resistant to our fungicides is use multiple modes of action each time you're spraying and keep that plant healthy throughout the season. One other thing that can help your crop is controlling our weed of the week. We'll show you how to stop this tough weed later in the show.
Take a look inside any rotary combine and you'll find single rotor technology. Technology Case IH introduced over 35 years ago with the axial flow combine. But unless it gives you more bells and whistles with fewer belts and chains, more power using less fuel, it's not an axial flow. Because while the heart of every rotary combine beats red, only Case IH gives you the power to do more.
I know a lot of people that have them, and I don't know anybody that doesn't like their Morton building.
The crew was really, in my book, top-notch.
The quality of this building is second to none, and they make sure before you walk away that you're happy.
This is my dream barn. I think it ended up looking even better than I thought it would.
People love it. When they get in here, they're just in awe.
Morton Buildings, for work, for life, for generations.
Are you looking for an easy way to apply dry powdered products to your stored grain? Do you want to use the applicator recommended by industry leaders for products like Diacon D and other dry powder products? Changing Time CT applicators successfully apply a diversity of products quickly, easily, and accurately. The innovative CT applicators are designed to give you the most accurate application of products such as talc, inoculants, fertilizers, and other dry products. For commercial use or on the farm, you need the applicator industry leaders are using. CT applicators for the changing times.
The buzz on this line is probably the best in 10 years, both in soil and in the plant. Joe, you've been doing this for a while. What's your take?
Well, Don, you take a player like High Energy N, 3 forms of nitrogen, plus sulfur and iron, with slow release technology, he's making plays all season long.
Oh, look at his numbers. He's getting it done.
But don't forget about in response. This guy's designed for a quick release nitrogen.
It's looking like another championship season for Agro Liquid.
In-season corn nitrogen applications. We get a lot of questions about this because, quite frankly, there are a lot of opinions about this. We see a lot of things done, and quite frankly, I don't know if we'll ever be able to fine-tune it and get it right down to exactly where we need it, but this is a big deal. It's an expensive application, and we got to decide whether or not we're going to do it on our farm just like you do on your farm.
So when we're going out in season, in crop, in dryland ground, what's the best application method? Because there's a lot of ways to do it.
Well, first of all, we got to step back and say, what's our cation exchange capacity and how much rainfall do we have? So if we have a low cation exchange capacity, in other words, we have light soil with little organic matter, then we can't hold a lot of anything. So when you talk about what's the best application method, it's early and often, okay? And continuing on all the way till late. That's the best application method, however you want to get it out there. But I guess what I'm getting at here is I look at our farm and I say, I got 20 CEC, so it's heavy. I get very little rain. What are the odds that I'm even going to get a rain if I do an in-season nitrogen application? They're slim. So I, on our farm, have to be much earlier than a guy with light soil with irrigation, or a guy with light soil who is getting rainfall all the time, every other day. We just don't get that. So when we talk about this, just understand it really depends on your situation.
Okay, how important is knowing your organic matter and knowing your previous crop?
So the previous crop makes a little bit of difference. The number one thing is, are you going to have high carbon residue that will tie up your nitrogen? There is no such thing as a soybean credit, so get that out of your head. But there is such thing as high carbon residue from last year's corn or last year's wheat absolutely could tie up some of your nitrogen. So the other thing is, organic matter releases for free nitrogen every year. In our operation, I figure about 20 to 30 pounds of nitrogen per 1% of organic matter. So our average soil has 4% organic matter. That's 80 to 120 pounds I'm going to get for free. So if I look at soil testing in advance and I say, hey, I've got 40 pounds already sitting there, and it's probably not going anywhere because we don't get any rain and we have heavy soil, plus I'm going to get another 80 to 120 pounds, I'm starting the year already saying, if I look right at the nutrient removal chart and for my yield goal I need 250 pounds of nitrogen, I can already subtract off 120 to even 160 pounds off that. So I really don't need that much.
Well, I think the important thing is you get out and you do some soil sampling to see how much nitrate is out there in your soil when you begin the year and how heavy your soil is to see, well, how much can I actually hold? Then you start backtracking and say, well,
and that's about 10 times your CEC. 10 times your CEC is the rough holding capacity of your soil at any one time.
Then you look at, well, what do I need for total for my crop? Let's just say it's 200 pounds of nitrogen you need total and you have 50 pounds of nitrate out there. Well, that means I've got another 150 I have to get somehow, some way. Now you look at your organic matter, and let's just say, for example, you have 2% organic matter in your soil. Well, if I get 20 to 30 pounds of nitrogen per acre
per percent of organic matter. So that's 40 to 60, right?
Yeah, now you've got that you don't have to make up. Well, now you're down to only 100 pounds or a little bit more that you've got to apply to the crop.
So the thing is, when Darren said, well, when should I apply it? In our situation, I'm going to apply most of that real early. In your situation, you might have to spoon feed and apply 5 different times throughout the course of the growing season. We really like pre-emerge application in the heavy soils where we have no rain.
Heavy soil and no rain, because this is your shot to have availability.
Right.
Now, if you're in a high rainfall environment, you don't like putting it on early because you might lose
Well,
some.
you want a little bit, and again, spoon feed that out. So we do like liquid, we do like dry is okay, but you got to be careful with dry. We don't want to get too much in the whirl, especially as that crop gets big. You can certainly do anhydrous, it's just more dangerous to work with. So most of the time, we're talking liquid nitrogen. We really like Y drops, that's a pretty good way to go. Otherwise, you can certainly inject it if you're worried about getting rainfall soon after you've applied.
Then when you're ready to apply some nitrogen in season, Pull an in-season nitrate test. It only costs $5 to $10 a sample to send it in, find out exactly where you're at in your field, and then you can diagnose, hey, do I even need to apply more nitrogen, or have I got plenty out there? You can also use some of the great tools that are available, like Farmer's Edge, for example, is a great nitrogen management tool for your crop. Based on where you're at and your local weather, they can estimate very closely how much nitrogen your crop still needs.
One last thing I guess I would throw out there is we want to get the most efficiency out of the nitrogen we apply. Nitrogen may be your limiting factor, but it might be sulfur or it might be some other nutrient. So make sure you've got those other nutrients taken care of at the same time.
Well, nitrogen management in your crop is absolutely critical if you want to have good plant health all through the season and maximize your yields and profits. Another thing you have to do is control our Weed of the Week. We'll show you how coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is brought to you by Dow AgroSciences. Finish the fight against tough weeds with the Enlist Weed Control System.
Weeds are tough, but we're tougher. With unrivaled weed control, reduced drift, and near zero volatility. So, who's tough now?
Our weed of the week is usually not a weed, but today it is. If it's in a field where you don't want it, volunteer corn is one of the worst yield robbers you can have.
I remember when we were kids, it would be, well, get the volunteer corn controlled up by the road and then over the hill. Don't worry about it so much where nobody can see it. And I thought, what? We're not going to let that thing go. Corn uses lots of water, lots of nutrients, and soybeans just can't compete. You've got to control volunteer corn.
Yes, absolutely. It definitely can hurt your yield. Weed for weed, it's the worst weed that there is. It's worse than Palmer pigweed. It's worse than water hemp. Now, don't get me wrong.
For how much yield it's going to rob with that one plant.
Right, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying if you got 1 million water hemp plants and 1 volunteer corn, the volunteer corn's worse. No, but I'm saying if you have very much volunteer corn at all, it's a big time yield robber. You've got to stop it. The other thing I want you to think about is many people like to rotate away from corn for 1 year, and that helps in terms of the corn rootworm population, diseases, number of other things. Well, you're not helping that at all if you allow that volunteer corn to grow for even a month.
You know what? The rootworm can find that volunteer corn and use it as a host to get by. Just dig up some volunteer corn plants in your field and you'll see. Now you may say, I don't have any volunteer corn plants. Great. Talk to your neighbor, go in his field and dig them up. Almost every volunteer corn plant I dig up has corn rootworms around.
Well, here's our whole point. Just spray it early. It's so much easier to control when it's early. You're going to stop those rootworms when it's early. You're going to minimize the yield damage when it's early. And it only costs about $2. That's it. Now granted, the best herbicide is Fusilade, and that's probably going to cost you a little over $3. Okay, so you spent an extra $1, all right? I realize you might want to go with cheap clethodim, but that is not nearly as good as Fusilade. And the next one down the list would be Assure 2. So Fusilade's by far the best, then Assure 2, fairly close behind. Then you've got clethodim a ways down the list, but all of them very inexpensive.
All right, the other thing is don't rely on Liberty. Just like we don't rely on Roundup to control it because you say, well, there's a lot of Roundup Ready corn out there, so I'm pretty sure Roundup's not going to stop it. There's also a lot of triple stack or quad stack kind of corn out there that's tolerant to Roundup and tolerant to Liberty. So even if you didn't necessarily plant that yourself, you may have some of that in your field. So don't rely on either Roundup or Liberty to get it under control.
Well, that's it for our Weed of the Week volunteer corn, but stay tuned. Iron Talk is coming up next.
Introducing the SoilMax ZD48, the newest addition to the SoilMax Gold Digger lineup. The first plow designed for smaller class tractors, the ZD48 has been tested on tractors weighing between 10,000 and 16,000 pounds with excellent results. Designed for row crop farms, vineyards, irrigation, and specialty crop farms. The SoilMax ZD48 will install tile up to 48 inches deep, as well as install 3 or 4-inch tile. The ZD48 truly opens up the world of tile installation to more farms than ever before.
I know a lot of people that have them, and I don't know anybody that doesn't like their Morton building.
The crew was really, in my book, top-notch.
The quality of this building is second to none, and they make sure before you walk away that you're happy.
This is my dream barn. I think it ended up looking even better than I thought it would.
People love it. When they get in here, they're just in awe.
Morton Buildings, for work, for life, for generations.
Unlock your nutrient investment with QuickRoots technology. It contains 2 powerful microbes that can help free nutrients bound in your soil, which can improve access to key nutrients for healthy crops, N, P, and K. Applying QuickRoots technology to seed can lead to improved root and shoot growth, increased yield potential, and maximized nutrient investment. See how you can make your fertilizer dollar go further at monsantobioag.com/QuickRoots.
This Agro Liquid line is something special. A lot of really impressive playmakers. Take a look at Sure K. This guy is an enigma.
But wrap your head around the exceptionally high plant response when compared to conventional potassium sources, the research-proven plant availability, plus flexible application options and mixing capabilities.
Really stellar performance stats. Sure K is a true standout, and that's a winning goal on any field.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
Take a look inside any rotary combine, and you'll find single rotor technology. Technology Case IH introduced over 35 years ago with the axial flow combine. But unless it gives you more bells and whistles with fewer belts and chains, more power using less fuel, it's not an axial flow. Because while the heart of every rotary combine beats red, only Case IH gives you the power to do more.
Will my spray work differently in the morning versus the afternoon versus the evening? The answer is that it can and often does. We'll explain how to manage that in today's Iron Talk. At our farm, we're looking for, well, nothing special, just a day that isn't windy, has no chance of rain, it's sunny, warm, and has all the crop and weeds actively growing. And then if we can get that to fall in the middle of the week, that would be great too. Well, how many of those days do you think you're going to get on your farm this summer? Maybe 2 or 3 in the whole year? Well, here's what you can do. Wind seems to be one of those things that's certain to be a problem, and because of that, our operation, and likely yours as well, has been spraying many of the acres either in the early mornings or later into the evenings to try to avoid the wind. Now, there are a few challenges to watch out for sure, including air inversions in the evening, so cutting off spraying at supper time may be a good idea. Well, today we're going to talk about moisture. Moisture is critical, and I'm not just speaking about the chance of rain. You also have to look at dew. If the plants are all covered in dew in the morning, well, you need to wait to spray till that dew's burned off. Otherwise, adding more water droplets to those already wet leaves will just cause all the moisture to run off, or if not, your spray solution will be diluted that much more. The other thing, especially in the evenings, is that spraying too late in the day may cause the spray droplets not to dry on the leaf effectively, making your rain-fast times much longer. In other words, your product is safe from rain if it's sprayed on 2 hours before a rain, but if you spray at 9 p.m. and the humidity comes up, perhaps a dew sets in, whatever the case, you may now have extended your time before your product is safe from rain until 10 a.m. the next morning. So check the forecast before spraying and be aware of any moisture that may impact your spray. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show. That's all the time we have for today's show, but before we go, I just have a couple more things for you. First of all, we've got the Ag PhD Field Day coming up on Thursday, July 26th. We invite you to come to that. It's on our farm. It's a free event. You'll have a great time. Just go to agphd.com for more details. We also invite you to tune into the Ag PhD radio show. You'll find us each weekday on SiriusXM Channel 147 at 2 p.m. Central. And don't miss the next Ag PhD TV show. We'll have another Weed of the Week, Farm Basics, Iron Talk, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty. And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.